Got it. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Friends of the John Dickinson Mansion. And I guess it's better we're not meeting face to face. It's so darn cold out there today.
Yeah.
Which seems unusual. All right, why don't we move forward then, because we have a number of issues, I guess, on our agenda that we need to talk about and address. So could we have the secretary's report, Ellen?
Well, I emailed the secretary's report out. I emailed all the documents out.
Correct.
Did anybody have any questions or concerns with the meeting minutes from our September meeting?
I was just going to ask Elizabeth if we sent out Christmas cards.
No, sorry, that didn't happen.
I know I didn't get one, so I didn't know whether that was the issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, didn't get to it.
Okay, no one has any questions or issues. We have a motion to accept the meeting of the September, the minutes of the September board meeting.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
The meeting minutes are accepted. David, could we have the treasurer's report?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
All right, great. Well, yeah, like Ellen said, the report was sent out, I guess last week. So I won't take the time to go through every line item, but are there any questions on what was in the report? No.
I have one question. Since we haven't had the annual fundraising event in the last year or two, can anybody tell me, because I don't know, what kind of money we raised from that event on an average basis? Does anybody know that?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't know
Rodney,
that.
I don't know what the numbers are, but typically for small events, you kind of just like break even usually just because of the amount of costs that go into the catering and everything.
okay.
I can't say for certain. We might make a little bit of money since all of our time is donated, but I don't know that it's like a huge money maker.
Yeah, okay.
That's
what
my
I
sense.
expected. Okay. It always ends up being more of a goodwill event than an actual fundraiser.
Absolutely, yeah, it's more of a fundraiser and a touch point. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, do I have any questions about our treasurer's report? Hearing none. We don't, now, I can't remember. Do we vote to accept this or not? We just move on?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, very good. Thank you, David.
Yes.
And then Elizabeth, for a membership report.
Yeah, I emailed out the report this morning. Sorry, it was a little late. It includes basically the wrap up for 2021. You can see that we had 61 total members, and a member, just to remind everyone, is considered a household too. So many of our members have more than one people in their house. So, but that's the number of actual like replies that we got to that mailing, the mailing throughout the year. So 61 people for $5,290 in membership. And then I just did a comparison between the last couple of years, and I included some charts. So the first chart is the total membership dues by year. You can see that we did raise a little less in 2021 than we did in 2020. However, we're still well above our 2018 and 2019 levels. The second chart is the number of members by year. So again, the number of members that replied to our mailing. Last year in 2021, we had 61 members, which was again down from 2020, but still higher than the 2018 and 2019 numbers. And then the final chart is the average membership gift by year. So that's just the total number of gifts divided by the number of members. And even though we did have fewer members in 2021, the average gift was slightly higher than in 2020. So our average for 2021 was $86.72 per member. And again, that's much higher than 2018 and 19. And part of that is because we did change the membership tier and levels, I believe in 2020, we changed those levels. So that's part of the reason that those numbers are higher.
And so the number of members we have is how many? Or memberships, rather?
The number of memberships in 2021 was 61.
61, okay, I see that.
And our mailing list, the number of people that we mailed to last year was about 157. So, you know, that list contracts and expands throughout the year. We have people drop off, we have people come on. So, but that was the number of people that we sent the mailing to. Even though that may seem like a kind of not a good return for nonprofit organizations to have approximately a third of the people that you mail to respond to your mailing is pretty good. More than a third, that's pretty good. So the people that we are mailing to are pretty engaged for the most part.
And are most of these members who have been long-term members?
The data that I have goes back to 2018 because that's when I started to do this in 2018. Right. So I haven't compared it to what was previously, but the list that I inherited was the list that was used before me. So I just don't have the actual recording of how many people gave in the previous year. So I don't have that information. I'm sure that we could get it if we were to drill, go back into the archives, but typically if you look at the last couple of years, it's usually pretty good. Of course, 2020 and 2021 were odd because of COVID,
right.
But
right. I just wondered that maybe the people who are still supporting are longtime supporters and aren't coming on recently, and that's kind of our base.
My feeling is that a lot of our supporters are long-term. Sometimes people will miss a year and then they'll re-up again the following year. And right. So it's not, I think that if we were to compare the number of members that have been between 2018 and 2021, that would be an interesting thing to look at to see how many are still in that supported in 2018 are still supporting in 2021.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Charles.
Yes, I just have a question for Elizabeth and Mike. And by the way, that's a very, very nice report. Do we have any profile information on the membership, like age groups and things of that nature, geographic locations or anything?
Yeah, we definitely know where they live because we send them the mailings.
That's true.
But as far as, we have emails, we have some phone numbers. We don't have age. I think that we could ask that question if we wanted to send our members a survey and kind of get that information. But yeah, we don't, other than where they live and what their name is and what their email is, we don't really have that information, at least not in the sheets that I kind of maintain.
The reason I ask, I'm not a big believer in a lot of personal information going all over the place, but I'm just kind of wondering when I look at your charts and everything, I don't see trends, but we're not growing the membership, number one. Number two, you may be the youngest one of all 61. I don't know. What does it hold for the future for the organization? Is there any way to know anything? Can we unpack anything from this?
Well, I mean, certainly, my gut is that our membership is a little older than we would like it to be. I think that we do need an infusion of younger members. And if you don't add new members, then your membership is going to continue to decrease over time because unfortunately people, pass on. And so that is the question this is the issue that every nonprofit organization faces, is finding new membership and keeping their membership records robust and, you know, kind of future facing. So
Would it be a
Thank
good
you.
idea when we send out the membership renewal notice on a card to just gather some of that information? Just let people know that we're trying to get to know our members better? Is that a good idea or not?
I mean, I kind of feel like it would be helpful, if nothing else, to get an idea of how they found out about us. I think we've talked a little bit before about social media stuff and how, you know, that we may need to reach out through other social media platforms other than Facebook if we want to attract younger members. And so if we can get more of a sense of how people learned of us, and especially for the younger members, that might help us figure out where to focus our attention.
Yeah, how do you get your information? Where do you get it? That sort of thing. Right.
yeah, I think the question is, what method do you want to collect this information by? Do we want to send it with our member mailing? Because remember, our member mailing last year, we got 61 responses. So if, you know, we might, if we want to get more information, I think you have to do it in a number of different ways. Like, not everyone wants to send information over email, but some people would rather fill that out over email than write it in a card. So I think if we wanted to gather more information, one, we have to kind of set aside a separate group to decide what we're going to ask and why we're asking it and how we're going to keep that information, because you can gather as much information as possible, but to what end? You have to decide what you're really trying to get out of it. And then we have to figure out how we implement it. So, and again, like, some people are old school, they like the mail, I like the mail, but other people like, you know, I like both. I would probably respond to a survey over email. Maybe if I miss that email and I see it in my member mailing, maybe I'll respond to that. So I think we can send it in a couple of different ways again, but I think we just have to think about, are we just collecting data for data's sake, or what do we really want to get out of that information?
Right. I don't want to belabor it. I know the meeting's long, but I think it could be useful. I'd be glad to work with Elizabeth to put together maybe a sample, an example of what could be sent, and defer to the April meeting.
I will say, people love to give their opinion. So anytime you ask people what their opinion is or ask for their input, they do feel more engaged. So I think it is a good way to get our membership more engaged in thinking about us, and also understanding that we want to know them other than when they write us a check every year. So
Right.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, maybe could we just, yeah, Joe, go ahead.
I don't know whether I mentioned this before or not, but could we tag along with, I don't know, the Friends of Old Dover or the Friends of Woodburn, or the Biggs Museum, to expand our mailing list and try a larger mailing sometime? The problem with that is, if we said, can we borrow your list, they would say, we want to borrow your mailing list.
Yeah, I mean, I think that list sharing is something that a lot of nonprofits do, but there are some parameters that you have to like set around it. Not everyone wants to share their list, but I know that my nonprofit has done what we call a list enhancement. But there are some issues with when people might not be happy if they were on another group and then they suddenly got a mailing from us. So I think that you have to be a little careful about that, because sometimes it can backfire. But if both organizations go into it with a certain understanding, sometimes it's just a one-off use. So we say, hey, can we use your list for a single mailing? And then if we don't hear from your people, then we'll act like we never had their information. We won't email them again unless they engage us. So that is an option. It's just, you have to think about some of the mechanics of it and some of the fallout potentially with certain people.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think people might not want to be find out that they're being put on other lists. So we have to be careful of that. And I think, but I going back to what Charles brought up, I think getting some more profile information might be a good idea for us. And so if I could take Charles up on his offer to help put something together, maybe, I don't know whether you would send it on a postcard to be returned. Is that an easy, or why don't you come up with, and Elizabeth, can you and Charles work with that? Maybe even Casey, if you have the time, come up with something and get back to us
Sure.
Glad to.
on a proposal of how you would approach that, what the questions would be, and the best way to
Yep,
solicit that data.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
we
believe
could
in the
list
KISS
it,
principle for one thing. Keep it simple.
yeah, list it for the April meeting. An agenda item for the April. meeting.
Please. Yeah, I think we certainly by then. And I would suggest that if you can put that together and get it out before the April meeting, so everybody has a chance to look at it and think about it, so that when we come to the April meeting, we're not starting, from zero on that.
Mhm.
And as you know, we've been trying to get committee members and things to get this. It's good that we have all this information ahead of time to digest a little bit before we have our board meeting. So, thank you. The next item, is there anything else? Any other questions? Ray, do you have a question?
Yeah, Rodney, so just to be clear, so what you're asking that group to perform is basically, data on our existing membership, is that correct? Some
Yes.
kind of a demographic review, right?
Say that again, I didn't hear it.
Okay, so in other words, I'm trying to understand the purpose of doing this. Is it in fact to get a demographic review of our current membership, or is it to try to expand our membership?
Well, I think it's kind of both. It's a way to start to expand our membership, to know who our membership is, and maybe how they found out about it, how they're getting information, and do we have any significant number of young members, or are we talking about a senior citizen group here? Largely, I think it would be helpful for us to have that information, because obviously what we want to do is grow our membership, or at least
Right.
make the John Dickinson increase the awareness. That's part of our mission. And
Right.
so we need to know who our audience is.
Right, okay, so that's probably a good start right there, knowing who our membership, the composition of our membership, great.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Elizabeth? Thank you, Elizabeth. The next is Tom. Could you give us a website update? Is there one?
It's very, very briefly.
Okay.
First of all, I hope everybody here occasionally checks the website. It's dickinsonmansion.org. And I bet if I asked you, half of you wouldn't even know that. But we did have some technical problems, which I've gotten worked out. For instance, links go away, you go in it and you click something. Anyway, that's sort of up to date. I've added some other links lately, one that somebody sent me, this report from Rob Nadelson, which is really excellent. I'm now trying to rewrite John Dickinson as a politician, that part, and trying to put some real meat in it. When we first got this website, it was so unprofessional, I thought. And so I'm trying to raise the bar a little bit without making it too erudite or something. Anyway, the other thing is that I would really, John Sweeney's art on, the founder that you've never heard of, I finally got that registered with the website, and I'd like to put that on the website. If you know, I'd like to have it on the cover page if everybody is in, you know, goes along with that. Everybody agrees with it. That's all.
If I may, I have one caveat on that. I was going to bring that up in my report. We haven't paid the artist yet, I don't think. And if I'm all for it, and I think we should use it as often as we can and as in many places as we can. But I would like us to pay the artist who pulled that, who did the drawing and so forth. We had authorized $500 for them. And if we could cut a check and send it to them, then it's all ours.
Can you work with David Holden to get that check generated and sent to him?
Sure will.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing an invoice, but if you could just email me an invoice, we'll turn it around.
Okay.
Very good.
So does everybody agree that it's good to have that on the cover, on the front page of the, on the home page of the website?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, let's move forward with that then.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Tom. Gloria, good to see you. And Dan, how about a state report?
Dan, do you want to go first?
No, you go ahead, Gloria.
Okay, I sent out a brief report earlier. The Plantation Stories Project is online on our website. It's an online database that lists the names of the enslaved and free Black people associated with the Dickinson Plantation. It's being updated as research continues, but you can go on and you can look based on the 5 documents that we use. You can go on and look. We are still continuing to update it. We are still continuing to do the research, and hopefully soon we'll be going up to HSP and we'll be looking at Samuel Dickinson's ledger that they have up there and hopefully find more information. So, and that will inform and put more information on the database itself. We've engaged in several media outlets in the last couple of months. I've talked to public radio. We have done interviews, radio on newspapers and on television. So you can find us almost anywhere. We have also had a forum with the governor on the African burial ground, and that's on YouTube, and you can look at that. It's a very informational. It talks about John Dickinson. It talks about the African burial ground and our discovery of it. It talks about the tenant farmers, the enslaved individuals, and the free Black people who lived and worked. It's a very informative forum that we have. Annie and I have also submitted a proposal for ALFAM, the Association of Living History Farm and Agricultural Museums. We have, and also Verdi Lee, some of you may remember her. We submitted a proposal to talk about the discovery of the African burial ground and our partnerships with the Friends Group and the St. John's Reserve to talk about how grant opportunities are available through partnerships and also how working together can get a lot more accomplished than just trying to do it on your own. It's in Tacoma, Washington. So if things level off with the pandemic, and if they continue to have it live, we are going to request the Friends help support us to get to Tacoma, Washington. I will be honest, the state has, the travel money is not extensive. And so we would definitely need support if we're going to go to Tacoma, Washington to do the session that we proposed.
Gloria, would you know by the April meeting?
We should know.
Okay.
We should know whether they're going to have it, for one.
Yeah.
I think it happened. And also how much things are going to be by the April meeting.
All right.
Our newest staff member, Lauren Moser, has resigned. And so we are going to be hiring a new casual seasonal interpreter. So if any of you know anyone, please let us know. Let them know that we will be hiring a new casual seasonal interpreter, and they can apply for the job. We have continued to do on-site programs. Well, that was before the new.
Before this morning.
I'm going to talk about that. We do have some changes in our scheduling and what we're doing. So we did burial ground visitations from September to November. We had quite a few people participate in them. Some of you friends participated in the burial ground visitations. We're going to start them up hopefully in the spring, but that will be dependent on the trail installation. And Dan's going to talk about that in a little bit. We did an 18th century trades day. We had attended the Blackbird Creek Fall Festival, where they had several hundreds of people. And I will be honest, we had a line that never ended. Everybody wants to do sachet making for some reason. The lantern tours were a success. Well, the one lantern tour was a success this year. And also the Bayberry Candle Workshop was another success this year. We hope to continue them in the future. They're hands-on for some of them, and we would like to continue that, but we'll have to do it in a safe way and manner. Which leads us to our new regulations with regards to touring and visiting the plantation. We are now requiring reservations, and we are still limiting it to no more than 15 in a group at any of the buildings at any given time. And one last thing I forgot to mention, Early American Life, the February issue, they have an article about smokehouses, and our smokehouse is one of the ones they feature in the article.
Hey.
Very good.
And I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
Thank you, Gloria. Happy New Year, everybody. One of the reasons I wanted to go after Gloria is I knew she was going to mention the Plantation Stories Project, but I was pretty sure she wasn't going to mention the fact that she and Annie and Verdi and Sakina Rock, who is one of our inclusive history researchers, were selected as the Department of State's employees for the third quarter of 2021 for that project. So congratulations to them. It's well deserved.
Very good.
Congratulations.
And now Gloria's mad at me, but that's okay. So we are moving forward with creating those new pathways on the site. I know we've talked about this before, but just a quick update, and I did include that with what I sent to Ellen, but we have moved through the majority of the permitting process for everything except the wetlands, and that would be phase 2 of the work anyway. And we are finalizing the bid package that's going to be going out to the trail construction contractors. And so we hope to have that wrapped up so that we can start breaking ground as soon as possible. Probably not, we were hoping for the end of this month, but it'll probably be February, assuming the ground isn't frozen still. So we are moving forward with that. We are going to make sure one of the things that we do with projects like this, where we're digging into the earth, is we will be having a monitor from an archaeological firm, so that if they run into anything unexpected, they can stop the work. If we need to then pull in some archaeological work, we can do that. We're not anticipating that because we did, a lot of archaeological preliminary work. And so we made sure that we're trying to avoid areas where we would likely hit something because we don't want to damage any buried cultural resources. But just to be absolutely safe, we do have an archaeologist that will be there whenever there's digging to monitor the situation in case we do need to stop work. And so that is moving forward. There will be hopefully more on that soon with dates and things like that. But the intent is that the bulk of the trail, excluding the wetland section, will be in place by mid-May, weather permitting. And so that will connect us over to our neighbors at Denier, the St. John's Reserve. And that portion of the trail, just as a reminder, because we got this grant a little while ago, Denier was able to get a grant from NOAA for $100,000 for that portion of the trail. So part of the trail is grant funded, which is great. And we are working on the rest of it. Speaking of grants, we received another grant from the National Trust. And again, this information was in there, but this is to hire a consultant to assist us with some staff training for utilizing the Engaging Descendant Communities rubric. And then also helping to have an initial public meeting. And this will really help us to put together the descendant community. We've had some people who have been in touch, having seen the programs that we've been doing or the governor's forum and other things. So getting the word out there that we are looking for people to be a part of the descendant community is already working. And so this will just kind of further that process so that we can keep things moving forward. And then one other thing is we do have, if you haven't been out on the site recently, we have a couple of sheds that are garages because we do have a new utility vehicle, which came in really handy with the snow. Our maintenance team and horticulture team enjoyed using it from what I understand. And the spreader worked so that we didn't have anybody slipping and sliding on the ice. So that has already come in handy, and we expect to be using that even more once we get the new pathways in place. So I guess, does anybody have any questions for either of us?
For the trails that you're building there, it's all going to be self-guided. Are they going to have like trail markers or any kind of brochure that point out different aspects of the trail?
We intend to be adding some waysides, so there will be some stops along the way in different places where people can get information. We've talked about developing a brochure. We're looking at different options between a brochure or potentially an audio guide, or maybe both that interact with each other. So there's several options that we're looking into for that, and we would also be working with the St. John's Reserve because they want to have something as well. So there might be one for the history side, there might be one for the nature side, there might be one combined. So we're still working out those decisions. And there won't be some, I mean, there may be markers if we're doing like an audio guide or something like that so that people know where to listen to a particular thing. But the trails themselves are going to be pretty obvious on the landscape. So, you know, we won't need blazes, you know, it's not that kind of trail. It's going to be a gravel trail that is accessible. So, so it'll be pretty clear where people are supposed to go. And, you know, we might have some reminders to stay on the trail so they're not just kind of tromping through farm fields and things like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Dan, does that mean that you're still working on the interpretive plan that the trails accommodate?
We do have the interpretive vision. We are working on the plan for the specific points. And so that's sort of an evolving thing. The idea behind the vision is that as new parts of the site come online, whether it's the trails, whether it's the visitor center, we can then incorporate that into the vision and get the more specific pieces of the plan in place for that.
So is this interpretive vision a document that you have, the state has?
It is, yes.
I don't recall seeing it. Is that something that you've shared with us or could share with us?
We certainly could, and we may, I thought we intended to, but we may have neglected to send it, in which case I apologize for that, but we can certainly get that to everybody.
Yeah, I'd be interested to read it. Thank you. Charles, did you have a question?
I do. Dan, is there any federal funding in this trust, this grant that you have? And two, you mentioned gravel and impervious surface. Is it ADA compliant? Is it going to be ADA compliant?
It is. So the first question is, with the National Trust, the majority of their grants, except for one just recently, do not have federal funds in them. There is one that they just did that does have federal funds, but while HCA made an application for that, it's for a different project. But the grants we have gotten from the National Trust do not have any, for the John Dickinson plantation, do not have any federal funding in them. As far as the trail, you are correct that it is pervious surface and it is designed so that water can flow through, so we don't accidentally create any dams or anything like that through the fields. And the intent is that it will be accessible. So with a gravel pathway, if part of it gets washed out, obviously we'll need to repair it, but but it will conform to ADA standards. And we're also waiting on our golf cart so that if somebody, maybe can't physically walk that far with a walker or get down to the end of the trail with their wheelchair, we will still have an opportunity for them to experience that utilizing the golf cart. We were supposed to have it already, but unfortunately, the vendor got caught up in supply issues with everything going on. So we are supposed to get it the end of this month or the beginning of next month, hopefully.
Thank you.
Very good. Are there any other comments or questions for Dan?
Yeah.
For John?
If I may, I have a question for Gloria. You mentioned about the visitors now must come by appointment only. Is that a temporary rule or is that intended to be permanent?
It is an existing rule. I don't know how long it will be, but for now, that's going to be the rule. Just like before, we had this happen before where we went to reservations and then we opened it up. We'll see how long that's.
I mean, assuming that COVID problems eventually go away, I know that's a rash assumption, but after that, in that idyllic future.
Yes, in the idyllic future, we will go back to, we will have a new normal, which will be similar to our old normal, which will be opening the doors for people to come.
Okay.
Very good. Anyone else? Well, thank you, Gloria and Dan, for the update. Much appreciated. And I guess, Dan, if you could just send that interpretive report, pass it on to Ellen. Ellen could make it available to the board members.
Good thing.
That brings us to old business. The first item is a landscape update, and there is none from me. But I'm going to jump a little bit because I know David Holden is out of town and tuned in, and he told me he may have to leave early. And so I wanted to make sure that this IRS issue was something that was shared. Is that all right if I do that, Ellen?
Oh, that's fine.
Change the schedule? Okay. David, could you bring us up to date on what's going on with that?
Yeah, certainly. So it's an issue of more of uncertainty than anything. We hired an accounting firm, Williams and Hote, last year to help us with our reporting and record keeping. And since then we filed the annual report with the state of Delaware and the 990 with the IRS, and I think a copy of that was included with the board packet. But in going through the filings, they were not able to confirm that the 990s had been filed in the recent past. So they suggested that we could either just file the current one, which was for 2020, and basically assume everything was fine, steady as she goes, or they said we could inquire with the IRS and say, hey, is everything good? So we decided to take the tack that we would just file, and hopefully they would not react to the fact that we hadn't filed in the last few years, and we could continue kind of as things were going. So we haven't heard any feedback from the IRS since we filed that, and I don't know that we will. I'm not sure, based on the size of our organization, I don't know that we're a high priority for the IRS, but I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that they were not able to confirm that we had done our recent filings, but we have completed the most recent ones. So I'll pass along information as I get it from them. No one said yet that we don't have 501c3 status, but that was the concern ultimately. But like I said, just wanted to make the board aware.
Thank you. This proves why it was a good idea to bring, I think, the accounting firm in on board, because as we pass responsibilities from treasurer to treasurer, it's not always clear what kind of filings are required every year, especially if you want someone who doesn't have a background in it. And so this way, and as we go on into the future, we'll have some professionalism and some accountability to make sure that we don't have these kind of problems again, because we did, Ellen, we did lose our status
At
some years
one
ago,
point,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
at
and we
one
had to
point we did.
file again. And I mean, I don't think there's not enough money involved here. It's not like we're trying to hide anything. It was just an oversight, apparently, in the filing. And so, and I've discussed this with David, and the thought was, let's just go ahead and file and see what happens. And in my view, in my opinion, the last thing you want to do is call the IRS and ask them to look into something. You never know where that's going to lead you. So I think it was prudent just to do this, and let's see what happens. Is there any questions about this? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that everyone was aware of these circumstances. So I'm glad it was brought to our attention. Thank you, David, for doing this. Okay, let's jump back up then. And could John Sweeney, could you talk to us about marketing, please?
Okay, thank you. Everyone should have the memo I wrote a little bit ago. These are suggestions to be thrown out, that I'm throwing out, that we should take a look at and come up with if they're acceptable, come up with a priority list of what we should do. I would like to tie in this memo to two of the items that we've already discussed. One is membership, and the other one is the web page. Starting with the web page, we certainly should start using the image that Tom brought up of Dickinson, the most important founder you never heard of. And it will help us, I think, get some recognition. And if we repeat it over and over again, it will build up. Also, later, as we approach the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation, we can update it. We can come up with another one, get something jazzier or more interesting and so forth. As to membership, I suggest several things that we should do, and specifically online, and in each of them, gather the email of people who are interested, not necessarily looking for memberships at first, but if we hold something, if we have a speaker who is speaking via Zoom and people can drop in and listen to the speaker, or if we put it on the website later, they just simply register by giving us their email, and we can build up a base of email contacts with people. The first thing that's coming up is the Delaware History Day. We are offering a prize, a John Dickinson prize for a high school student writing about John Dickinson and his contribution to Delaware and to the United States. And it's $250 and so forth. And we'll use this image of John Dickinson to send out information to the schools. We have some folks at the University of Delaware and their social studies component, which is in contact with all of the high schools involved, and they'll help us publicize it. By the way, the Delaware History Day will be held April 30th. It will be at Newark High School as of now, unless things have to be altered, and they're always looking for judges. So if you want to volunteer, you're quite welcome to do that. I think we should look forward to having some events. The Robert Nadelson tape that some of you have seen is very interesting. We might want to consider getting him to be a speaker. Ellen mentioned possibly having him at an annual event, or we could do it via Zoom. And we can get a number of speakers via Zoom and have them talk And if they have a book or something like that, just simply plug their book at the end and pay them a nominal fee. I think we should build a list of media contacts, so that if we come up with something, some kind of program that we want to assist on, we can reach out to them and possibly get some publicity. Now, the old idea of just going to the News Journal or the state news just doesn't work anymore. They're not that important in the lives of Delawareans. So we have to be a little creative about it. Social media, to contact people, bloggers or influencers or what have you. So it's another way of taking a look at the age issue that we mentioned before. What I would like the group to do is make a suggestion on what should our priority be. The high school thing, the Delaware History Day is already in progress. That's in motion. But if we should work on something else, let me know what we should do first. But I think we need to get out there and raise the profile, not only of the mansion and the plantation, but of Dickinson, the person, because I think we have a very saleable commodity in John Dickinson, and I think he fits the challenges of the day. And getting his life and his thinking out there for people would be very helpful. And I think that especially as the interest grows, approaching the 250th birthday of the country, it will pay off. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, couple of things I was thinking about when I read through the list. If we can link what we're trying to do with other efforts, I think is like the Delaware History Day. But I was just wondering a couple of things. One is the museum in Philadelphia, the Constitution Museum. I haven't been there. I do plan to go. And I hear it's very good, and I don't know if there's any many references to John Dickinson there. Or I have no idea, but I would think that would be one thing. And another thing, I've been to, and I really enjoy them, and they just pack the house every time they have these speakers at the Delaware Archives down here in Dover. It's standing room only a lot of times. If we had a speaker that could speak to that, that would be a great forum, I would think.
I agree that if we could get, when they resume that program, that if we could work with them to sponsor a speaker or two. I don't think we have to have somebody speaking specifically on Dickinson, but on an issue related to Dickinson. Now, one of the things that we have at the mansion, and this I know nothing about, when we talk about the landscaping, the garden, the furniture, the design, these are things that can be sold as well. There are a lot of people who are very interested in that. You have groups of people who are interested in political history, just history, then the social history, but you also have people interested in furniture and in gardens and the lands. All of these things, that there are these discrete audiences out there that we should think about, of attracting them and pulling them together. I think the archives, I've been at several, I even spoke on Dickinson once there several years ago. But yeah, that's a great opportunity that's there. I'm sure that they would appreciate their help. I don't know who's in charge of it. Tom Summers used to be in charge of it, but he's moved on to another assignment. So when they get back together, we can talk to Steve Martz about getting involved with them, and if we can come up with the program to talk about it. A wild idea that I have is to hold a seminar, a writing seminar via Zoom for historical fiction. There are a lot of people out there who want to be writers, and we could get some accomplished historical fiction writers to do a presentation, via Zoom, where we pay them a little bit of money, like $100, $150, and just plug their books at the bottom of the screen. And again, it will draw people from beyond Delaware. We'll get their some information on them. We'll get their email addresses and so forth, and it will be a publicity for the John Dickinson Mansion. There are things like that, thinking out of the box, that we could do. The Museum Center in Philadelphia is very good. It's not as good as the American Revolution Center, the museum. My opinion, the Constitution Center rather is it's really nice, but it's in a big hall, and with all the kids there, you can't hear any of the exhibits, if you're over 50, I guess. But they have a room where they have the statues of all of the signers and the dissenters from the Constitution, and they're life-size statues, and you can walk through them. And to me, that's, every time I've been there, that's been the highlight. They have their own programs. It's the same thing with the American Revolution Museum. They have their own programs. They're going to be going after Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, the big ones for anything that they're involved in. Delaware on its own is not going to be a big player in that. There is an American Revolution Museum in Yorktown, Virginia, and a former director there now has an education program, and he is a nonprofit education program, and he recently interviewed Jane Calvert and me on John Dickinson. So that's going to be one of their programs, and he's presenting a video on John Dickinson, and he said that it would be available for us to put on our website, so forth. We should look for opportunities. Delaware, I don't know what Delaware's doing for the 250th, but a lot of other states already have programs planned, already have committees working and so forth. I don't know what Delaware is doing. So that's fluid, but we should be ready to jump on any opportunity to link in, but we should also be prepared to go on our own.
I have a couple thoughts on raising visibility. When I was invited to join this board, I was told that John Carney considered this a really represented entity, that John Dickinson Mansion. It was described as, he thought it was the Monticello of Delaware, which I loved, being from Virginia. It occurs to me that we haven't really utilized either our congressional delegation or currently who's sitting in the office of the president. Why couldn't we connect with them to increase our visibility? Would it be too much for Joe Biden to stop by sometime in the next 3 years and work it into part of his policy agendas or commemorations? But it just seems like that's an untapped resource that would, those people show up someplace and it's on every media outlet. We'd raise our visibility in 24 hours. So just a food for thought.
That's an interesting thought. You're going to have to say at the presidential level, of course, so that would have to be a special occasion. So you would have to raise that issue to make it special enough. I think it's one of these things is that if we raise the profile of John Dickinson first, you're more likely to attract it. I don't think it'd be a hard sell to get Tom Carper interested in it, because
he is a member already.
Yes, because he, it's part of the Delaware's National Park and so forth, which is his baby. So yeah, he could do that. I don't know how much positive news that would bring the mansion, having Tom Carper speak, unless he's listening, of course, it would be great. No, I think that it becomes a question with public officials. It becomes a question is if you raise the profile of Dickinson, then you'll get the public officials. Then you don't have to worry about it. If we do a number of these things, I could see us doing something at the archives, which is a perfect place to hold an event, a lecture and so forth, involving Dickinson and freedom and so forth. You can get the governor there, and that would help attract people and so forth and help build it up. So yeah, there are things that we can do, and I think every idea is a good one and worth exploring. And we just need to start thinking. One of the things I put in there is that we did a book. The Friends paid for a book a few years ago. Then the Delaware Historical Commission ended up paying for it. They took over the bills, but there are a lot of those books on John Dickinson in the basement of the archives. That why not offer that as a membership bonus for people? If you sign up at one of the higher levels, we'll send them the book. And also we can use parts of the book online. Some of the information that's there, some of the essays that are in the book, we can make better use of. The question, does everybody on the board have a copy of the book?
Yes.
So they're available. I mean, at one point when they first came out, we were worried about how we're going to pay for it, but that was taken care of. So they're available. They're just sitting there. I also mentioned in the my note a newsletter. Elizabeth and I played with this idea back a couple of years ago, and she came up with a beautiful design. And we toyed with it, and I think we were interrupted by COVID, but that's something we realize how much work it is. But that is something that we should really consider and plan. We take more than just 2 people, but different ways of being in consistent contact with members and would-be members, and using information about the people who lived here, and the actual physical facilities and the cultural amenities that go along with the mansion.
If I could jump in, it seems to me that, I mean, and kind of going back to David's suggestion, I was very much aware, and John, you've picked up on this with the most important founding father you've never heard of. And that's the problem that we found when we were talking about raising money. People said, well, who is he and what is this John did? They never even heard of him. And so there is value in getting the name out there. And I know in some professional organizations that I've participated in, we co-sponsored lectures, we co-sponsored things, and all it did was get our organization's name on something that was being organized and run by somebody else. And we made a contribution, a minimal contribution. And it seemed to me that it was well worth the money at the time. And it's a good way to go to get people to look at it and say, okay, what's the John Dickinson Mansion? What is that? Or the Friends of John Dickinson Mansion. And then if you ask the governor and other representatives to say, all right, if this is important, why not hold a press conference here? Why not make an announcement here? Why not have the press say, this announcement is coming from the Monticello of Delaware, and that in itself, I think, has a lot of value and would help to begin to get John Dickinson's name out. Certainly, if the president showed up, it would be in the national press all over the country. And so,
yeah,
there is some value in doing nothing more than getting our name published.
Yeah, it's true. And also, one of the things we could consider is aiming at a specific day to own a certain day, like September 17th is Constitution Day. Dickinson played an enormous role in the Constitution. I'm writing an article for Delaware History Journal where I am claiming, and I have good reason to claim, is that Dickinson and George Read saved Delaware. Delaware would not exist if it were not for those two. They thwarted James Madison and his Virginia plan. It was a Delaware conspiracy, because Virginia and Delaware and Pennsylvania wanted Delaware to disappear. Several members of the Constitutional Convention talked about Delaware becoming part of Pennsylvania. And Dickinson took on Delaware as a lawyer takes on a case, and he represented Delaware in the Constitutional Convention. So, and he also influenced a number of the rights that we have, the fact that you have jury trials being guaranteed and things like that are due to Dickinson. So Robert Nadelson, the person we alluded to as a speaker, has written some academic articles, law journal reviews about Dickinson's influence on the Constitution. And there have been a number of others. And so it's not just the Revolution, it's not just letters from a farmer, but the Constitution, where he is very important. So we have a lot of opportunity. What we need to do is pick a goal and go after it.
Yeah, and our purpose is to bring awareness, and so we raise money, however little it is. We raise money and we shouldn't raise money just to keep in a bank account and sit on it. In my view, we ought to invest it in what our purpose is, and if our purpose is getting the name of John Dickinson and his contribution out there, we ought to find ways to do it, even if it's only co-sponsoring something with, say, the Lewis Historical Society.
Yes.
You know, that gets us out, that gets our name out. What's that?
One mute. Thank goodness it's free.
Okay. I'm not muted, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay, thank you. Well, is there anything that we need to do specifically? I mean, we've already agreed that we should put the graphic in and include that. But is there anything else that John, you think we need to do specifically to move forward? Because we've got a lot of good ideas here.
Well, if we could pick one of them, other than the History Day and the logo, if we could pick one or two others and we just start working on it.
You want to recommend one?
Well, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to everyone. I don't know.
Okay, all right. No, but I think this is absolutely critical, and it's what we're all about. I mean, as I went through, and we'll talk about it in a minute, and read through our corporate certificate of corporation and all of that, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So, okay. Any other questions or comments for John?
Thank you.
No, but
Thank
it's-
you.
Great job.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, next on the list is the mission evaluation, which I sent a memo out to you. I hope you had a chance to read it. I had an assignment from our last board meeting, and so just briefly, I looked at our certificate of incorporation, and our primary purpose is to perpetuate the interest in John Dickinson and in his mansion, because our organization came into being in 1952 to actually purchase the mansion and then turn it over to the state and renovate or restore it, not renovate, but restore it. And so the whole purpose was about Dickinson and letting people know who he was and the contribution that he's made, but then also specifically about the mansion. Neither the certificate of incorporation nor the bylaws mention the grounds surrounding the mansion. Nevertheless, we have always, as an organization, supported the grounds in terms of, it was this organization, I understand, that played a major part in developing the garden out in front and doing a lot of the tree planting that we see there now, that some of them are aging significantly, and also interpretation with the orchard and things like that. So we've kind of been doing more than just Dickinson and the house that he lived or was raised in. And this came up last meeting, 2 meetings ago. I think it was Casey might have said that, you know, now that the state has confirmed a historical burial site of the enslaved population, the question was raised at the board meeting was whether we should amend our certificate of incorporation to broaden its mission, or whether we think it's good the way that it is. So that's the question I'm raising to you, and should it include the grounds? And of course, if you include the grounds, you include everything that goes with it, with an interpretation of the life in the daily life in the plantation, I would imagine. To answer the question about, there's no legal impediment to our doing this kind of thing, to our certificate of incorporation. We can change the wording in it. We're allowed to. It reserves the right for the board to amend, change, or repeal. Any amendments, though, would need to be filed with the state, but that's a fairly routine. That's just a change in language, and my understanding it's a fairly routine procedure. Bylaws, the notes also said something about the bylaws. The bylaws are ours. They don't really have anything to do with the certificate of incorporation with the state. We can do whatever we want in changing those, and this board, it doesn't have to go to a general membership vote. It's the board can change bylaws, is my understanding. So the question remains is whether we want to formally increase our scope of focus, an area of responsibility, and especially given the state's as yet unstated interpretive agenda. And that's why I asked Dan about what the interpretive agenda was. And I know that that the state's been working on that, especially with the idea of developing the new visitor center, although I'm not sure, Dan, you might let us know what the progress is, if any, on the visitor center planning is. So I just posed that question to the board. We don't have to answer it now because it's not under any time constraint, but whether or not we think we need to make some amendment to our purpose and direction, or whether we can carry on and leave it unamended in the way that it is. So I welcome your thoughts. Yes, sir. Charles.
Rodney, yeah, I was looking at that, and, you know, perpetuate the interest in John Dickinson and the mansion. That's a very broad statement, and it can mean almost anything, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also don't think that the board is going to change over time, and the direction is going to change because of whatever. I think it's broad enough. It's certainly broad enough. The only question I had was at the end of your memo about focus the area of responsibility. I don't know that we really have specific responsibilities that we've taken on, have we? But back again to the beginning of your memo, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. That's just my opinion.
Good. Okay. Thank you. And what I meant by responsibility was I see our responsibility going back to the primary purpose of perpetuating interest in John Dickinson. I think that is our principal responsibility as an organization. The mansion was purchased, it was restored, it's now in the hands of the state. We're here to help in any way we can, particularly in fundraising efforts if they are needed. And, you know, help send Gloria and her staff to important meetings and things like that. it serves a good purpose, but our primary responsibility is back to what we just talked about with John, and that is to perpetuate interest in John Dickinson. Yeah,
I just want to food for thought. We are working on a landscaping plan, which is technically outside of the mansion. So I really think that we're already working outside of the scope of what would be considered the mansion. If I also think about all of the exciting programming that the staff is doing, a lot of it takes place on the grounds, not necessarily inside. I think when the mission statement was created, it was probably created to ensure that the mansion itself was preserved in perpetuity, and that because at the time in the 60s, that was part of the deal, I guess, with the state, is that the state would take it over, but we were probably wanting to make sure that the mansion was well taken care of and looked after. And I don't think that that's going to change in the future. I think the state's going to continue to manage the site. But if I think about what is happening at the site, I think what's happening outside of the mansion is as exciting as what's happening inside of it. So I do think that we should consider that. It is a very broad statement, perpetuate interest in Dickinson and the mansion, but we are already working outside of the mansion as a group. We're already trying, and of course you can argue that that continues to perpetuate interest in John Dickinson and the mansion, but just something to think about.
thank you. Thank you. Are there any other thoughts about this? I mean, your point is historically, we've always been outside the mansion. So do we need to change anything?
I don't think we need to change anything.
Okay,
I mean, I don't know. I would argue that I think we need to think about it.
okay,
Maybe other people, I don't know. I love outside of the mansion. I love the mansion, but I like everything that's going on outside of it too. So I don't want to restrict ourselves by saying just the mansion. We already are doing stuff outside of the mansion. Was that outside of our focus area, even though we decided to do it? I don't know, but I don't know that we need to change. I think that we just need to acknowledge that we're already doing stuff outside of the mansion. So
yeah.
whether or not that merits a change, I leave to everyone else to weigh in on.
I think from one point of view is that what went on outside the mansion, even during Dickinson's time, was a very important part of Dickinson's world. And I think that we should, especially today with the discoveries and the work that has been done, looking at that and how involved all of that is. Remember, we talked about different levels of landscapes and so forth. I think we should acknowledge at least something along those lines. I don't think will make any difference, but at least it's at this point in time, since the future boards can change it at will, I think we should think of the wording that would acknowledge that we recognize how important that life on the plantation in the whole area and the social relations and so forth were to that world.
Okay. I mean, if it could be something as simple as adding that word in, it's the mansion,
Yes.
it's Dickinson, Dickinson's mansion, and his plantation.
Right.
And that would cover it all, really. Well, we don't have to have an answer right now. As I say, there's no time frame that's necessary on this. But I also, at the same time, I just wanted to make sure that we are still focused on Dickinson himself and his contribution that he made to this nation, and that we don't get sidetracked and not sidetracked, but we have something that competes with that because we're having a hard enough time doing a really good job in disseminating information and letting people know about John Dickinson and who he was and what his contribution was. I mean, that's a big challenge. And anyway, that's just my thought. So what, you want to just table this and we can talk about it at our next meeting that people have a chance to digest it a little bit?
Yeah, I can add it to the agenda for April.
Charles, did you have a thought?
Charles, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I fully appreciate what Elizabeth, I guess my concern is that what we would say. Now, Rodney, what you suggested, a very simple change, I wouldn't have a problem with that. My only concern is dragging us into more responsibility and effort than we can handle. I've seen a number of organizations I've been in. It's very, very difficult to keep within the scope of what you're really trying to do. And you just get dragged into things that dilute your efforts. And that's my
Scope creep and the danger of that. I got it. That happens a lot. But I also believe that today, when you talk about Thomas Jefferson or John Adams or John Dickinson, that today's discussion is not limited to just their contribution to the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence or whatever, but more so the entire holistic cultural event. You know, what happened to this guy's life? Who was he as an individual? Why did he have slaves? Why did he do this? What did he do over here? So I think this is an important question, and I don't think we should just table it to the next meeting. Not that we're going to resolve it today, but it may be worthwhile having a couple people, you know, kind of kick this around for a while and then come back at the April meeting with a more, you know, comprehensive discussion, because I really think what we're witnessing today is this more holistic viewpoint of an individual. And I think that really overlaps all the contribution, the technical contribution that John Dickinson made to the Constitution and other areas. So I would like to recommend that maybe you assign a couple of people or something to really work on this and come back in April with some ideas.
Okay. Well, that's actually what I hoped would happen, that this would start a discussion on that so that we could think about it some more. And if people want to focus on it and even do kind of a memo or write their thoughts down and share them with other board members, that would be a good way to proceed. And I don't know what the answer is going to be. It's up to us to decide that. But you're right, all history is contextual, and we don't want to seem to be ignoring the context, but at the same time, we don't want to be have scope creep or water things down. So could I ask you, Ray, to kind of to work on that, and if anybody else has some thoughts about it, could you contact Ray and share them? Is that a good way to proceed, or do we need more people on kind of a small group? Ray, you're it.
Okay, thank you. Be aware for what you talk about, huh?
No.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I would encourage anybody to this memo was meant to kind of kick the ball off and get it rolling here so we could talk about it as a group. And it's not something that I thought we would come to agreement or resolve in one meeting like this. I think we need to think about it. So anyone who has thoughts, and Ray, if you come up with some things in the meantime, we don't always have to wait for our next meeting to share everything. So
Very good.
I would say, Ellen, it puts a burden on you, but if anybody does come up with thoughts on these things, get them to Ellen so that we have one
I can-
point for dissemination of this discussion. Okay, thank you. Now, where's my agenda? Oh, here it is. Okay.
For the brochure update, I think the only thing Elizabeth was waiting for was a revised mission statement.
Yeah,
So,
so it sounds like that's not going to, obviously be resolved today or anytime soon. So I think we'll keep the brochure as is. I need to check on my stock to see how many I have left for the member mailing. But we can change it anytime. It's very easy to modify and update.
and
Okay.
that does bring up another issue that's not on the agenda, is that the president's letter normally goes out either January or February. And it outlines and highlights events of the past, but also encourages people to renew their membership.
I'll get to work on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. And when would you like to have that? Soon as possible, or?
Well, probably, let's see. I don't know, Elizabeth, what do you think?
I mean, you write it, I'll print it, mail it. So you let me know and I'll just reserve some time to do it. So,
Okay.
yeah. I do think that in that, Rodney, you can mention the member survey. I don't think it'd be ideal if it were inserted in the letter, but I don't want to hold up the letter because the survey probably won't be ready by then. But I think that's something that you can mention.
Well, I could certainly mention that we're planning on doing that, to give people a heads
Yeah,
up so they look
absolutely.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Very good. How about the annual, next would be the annual meeting arrangements, Eunice? You're muted, you're muted.
Our bylaws require that we have an annual meeting held each year between May 15th and June 15th. Last year it was held June 15th and it was virtual. So what we need to decide on is a date, because I think that would be good information for the president's letter and for mailing out so people can look for that. But as far as whether it's virtual or on site is going to be up to whatever happens in the next few months. But we do need to make some decisions regarding at least the date. And typically there is a speaker and the president can select or in concert with others. And Ellen has offered to work with me, but right now I don't know what we need to do until we kind of see what happens with COVID. Do we plan a meeting on site? Or do we wait and see in April whether or not that's going to be a possibility? Because right now that's not a possibility.
Right.
And in the past, the board has always adjourned somewhere for dinner. And so that might be something that people might want to have input on. So anyway, things for consideration.
Well, why don't we try and select a date anyway, so I can put it in the president's letter? We don't have to know because we can't know whether it's going to be virtual or not.
Right.
And I'll just say that, but at least it's giving people a date to put on their calendar and a heads up. And I do think having a speaker, we had a speaker, last time we had a speaker and it was virtual and I think it was very well received.
Was, yeah. Well, the date also affects Gloria and her staff. Last year it was June the 15th, which was a Tuesday. This June 15th this year is a Wednesday. Gloria, I don't know whether you have any preference as to a date that makes sense with your schedule.
We have nothing scheduled so far, and even the conference is not scheduled until June 23rd. So that's not an issue this
Okay.
year.
Okay.
June 14th is Flag Day.
That's right.
It's
I
a
don't know.
Tuesday.
Pardon me, that's a Tuesday and it's Flag Day, and I don't know whether some people have obligations, things they want to, other things they want to attend. I don't know. Is it all right to say well, the 15th on a Wednesday? Why not?
We could do that, or we could do it the week before on June 7th.
The only thing I'm going to say about that is it's a lot of local high school graduations.
Oh, you're right.
And I would
But
just, the
It's a
15th,
Tuesday.
yeah. I just think June the 15th might, a little bit later might be better.
Yeah, that's probably wise. All right, so we're going to have it June 15th. And in the past, it was an evening, and it has been an evening or late afternoon
Yeah.
meeting.
And if it is on site, what is the sense that we need to handle some dinner considerations? Or are you going to wait until April to make those decisions as well? Once we kind of know in April, hopefully.
I think so. I don't
Yeah.
think we have to make that decision and whether
Okay.
we're all tramp off the Sambos or whatever we're going to do.
Okay.
What time did we have it in the past? Was it 4 or 5 o'clock? Do you remember, Ellen?
It's usually, we meet like between 4 and 4:30 for people just to tour the mansion and have snacks and so forth. And then the actual meeting would start at 5, go to 5:30, and then we would have our speaker. And then after the speaker, we would adjourn to dinner.
Okay. Okay. All right, then June 15th it is in the evening, beginning at 5 o'clock for if it's a virtual meeting. Is that correct? Sound good? All right.
Yeah, we'll discuss it in more detail at the April meeting, Ellen, and
Yeah,
finalize things.
Okay, very good. The next meeting is Wednesday, April.
You were muted. I'm sorry. Tom looks like he was trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the website, for upcoming events and all, should I say starting at 5 or at 4?
well, hold off on that for now, Tom. Just mention the date that the annual meeting will be held on June 15th. Details to follow.
Okay.
Because, we don't know if it's going to be virtual or on site, or we haven't, contacted a speaker, or,
Yeah.
if we want to make dinner arrangements.
Yeah, I was just going to put it in, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
put the date in.
Put the date in. Okay. And I said the next meeting, but we don't have any board members to be replaced this time, do we?
No.
Really?
No,
So-
but that does remind me, a board member's term is only 2 years, and traditionally, each board member stays on for 3 terms, which is the limit according to our bylaws.
Correct.
But Rodney, theoretically, you should contact each board member to ask them if they are willing to continue their term, and also if they're an officer, continue in their role.
Right. Okay. All right. We won't do that now.
Okay,
Okay. All right. Very good. I will do that before the April meeting. Is there anything else on the agenda?
No.
Okay. Next meeting is April 13th then.
It
Same
It will
time?
probably, yeah, same
Probably, and
time,
I imagine it's going to be virtual.
probably.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, John. A second? Charles, all those in favor?
I.
Aye.
Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
Everybody.
Have a good start to your year, new year.